family, welcome back to another episode of the Filipino American Women Project. I am your founder, producer, and co-host, Jen Amos, and I just have to say, I'm really happy for you to be here. You could be listening to any other podcast. You could be doing other things with your time. You could be multitasking with other things. Whatever the case, you have chosen to listen to our show. So thank you. I'm really excited to get into today's conversation. I'm going to try to keep this really short, but I also have some really exciting announcements for you. So let me get some of the easy ones out of the way. Throughout this conversation, if you feel compelled to reaching out to us and sharing how this conversation has impacted you in a positive way, or however, we have a phone number. You can get ready, get your phone out. I'll give you a second. I mean, you probably are on your phone. So just pull out your contacts and save our phone number. Our phone number is 415-484-8329. Once again, that's 415-484-TFAW, or the numbers 8329. That's TFAW as in the Filipino American Woman. I'll say it one more time. 415-484-8329, or the letters TFAW as in the Filipino American Woman. Text us, leave us a voice message. We would love to hear from you. Secondly, Nani and I are setting healthy boundaries when it comes to social media, and we are not as active as we used to be on Instagram. We want to continue to stay in touch with you and build community with you via our newsletter. And so if you want to be involved, if you want to be in community with us, if you want to contribute to our project, please sign up for a newsletter. You can do that by checking out the show notes of this episode or checking out our website, tfawproject.com. That's TFAWproject.com. Next announcement, if you want to share with the world how much you love the show, consider leaving us a 5-star written review, whether it's on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. If you are an Apple Podcast listener, you just have to go to our show in your Apple Podcast app and scroll to the very bottom. Down there, you'll be able to see the reviews and you can leave a 5-star written review yourself. We'd love to hear from you and would be happy to give you a shout out, especially if you leave a 5-star written review. Last but not least, my most favorite timely announcement. Have you ever considered starting a podcast? Or if you do have a podcast, you want to continue growing your podcast? More importantly, have you ever wanted to participate in attempting a world record? Well, guess what? Once again, I have been invited to speak at PodFest this year. But it's not just any normal PodFest. This is going to be a global summit, online, virtual, and everything. And it's going to take place from August 10th to the 15th this year, 2020. The fun part about PodFest Global Summit is that they are going to be attempting the Guinness World Records title of the largest attendance for a virtual podcasting conference in 1 week. And guess what? You can be a part of it for free. That's FREE, free. Simply check out the show notes of this episode to sign up today or visit our website, tfawproject.com. Would love for you to be a part of it. Would love to see you there virtually. And I'm going to be representing. I'm going to be talking about the TFAW Project here at the PodFest Global Summit. And from what I had heard from the last speaker meetup, we have people from all over the world that are going to be attending this. And so would love for you to be a part of it and help me represent the Filipino American Women Project. Once again, tickets are free. They are limited. And they're filling up fast. So check out the show notes of this episode or the website tfawproject.com to register today. And hey, you may notice when you are signing up that you can actually upgrade your ticket. Whatever the price is, if you are possibly looking to get that at a 50% discount, reach out to me, Jen Amos. You can find me on Instagram. You can check out my contact information in our show notes or on our website. And I would be happy to give you the discount code to reduce the price of your upgraded ticket should you want to get that. All right, now I'm really excited to get into this next interview. So fun fact, thanks to our editor, Dennis, shout out to Dennis, Nani and I sound very articulate and eloquent, and we're really good at pronouncing things. But the truth is, that's not true. And thanks to our editor, he makes it sound really good. And so one thing about me that I tend to make fun of myself all the time is that I'm really good at butchering names. And so I just want to give a quick apology to Ashley Lanuza, who we are going to be interviewing here. At the beginning, I have a little slip up. So I just want to make sure, and we actually, like, Dennis did his best to edit it to not butcher her name. So Ashley Lanuza, I'm really excited to have you on the show. Thank you in advance for your grace, and also to our listeners for your grace in understanding that I am not perfect. I will say things wrong. And that is the beauty of being a Filipino American woman, is you fail forward and you show up anyway and you keep going. But please don't let that get in the way of this amazing conversation that we have with Ashley Lanuza. So Ashley, thank you so much for being on our show, and to our listeners, please enjoy this interview. All right, hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Filipino American Women Project, also known as TFAW Project, which you can learn more on our brand new website, tfaproject.com. That's TFAW. You should know what that stands for by now, but if you don't, that's okay. The Filipino American Women Project.com. You can learn more about us there and all of our other interviews and amazing guests. And as always, I have my amazing co-host with me. I need to come up with more adjectives to describe my co-host because I always either say incredible or amazing. So I'm just going to have like synonyms just readily available somewhere. I'm going to like Google this. Look up synonyms. Anyway, I have my amazing co-host with me, Nani Dominguez. Nani, welcome back.
Hello, beautiful people.
Yes, and we're excited. I need another adjective for that as well. We are thrilled.
There you go.
Because every time we get to do another interview, it means that we get to feature another incredible individual in our community. So I want to introduce you all to Ashley Lanuza.
Ashley, welcome to the show.
So fun fact about Ashley, she is an author, filmmaker, and lifelong student, and she just graduated from UCLA. Ashley, welcome to the show.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, I was so excited. So for anyone that is ever interested in podcasting, there is a huge supportive podcasting community online. And in one of those communities, I had the fortune of meeting Ashley. I actually reached out to her because in this online community that's shutting down soon, so I'm not going to mention the name of it, I think I literally did a search of Filipino, and you were the only one that popped up.
Yeah.
So Ashley, obviously you heard about the Filipino American Women Project through me, but I would love for you to share what inspired you, what compelled you to take my invitation and join us today.
Definitely. I'm a huge podcast lover. I love listening to podcasts all the time. And it always strikes me to listen to Filipino American oriented podcasts. So I do listen to this Filipino American Life and long distance radio, because I think it's really important to hear narratives from different perspectives. And so this definitely compelled me because I'm a huge supporter of the podcast community, especially the Filipino American podcast community.
Love it. Yeah, shout out to TFAW. We interviewed Elaine there, who also is a counselor at UCLA. I recently discovered. And she was one of the first people we interviewed, at least Nani and I together on the show. Mm-hmm. And she talked a lot about mental health, which she was one of the people early on to talk about it and really normalize the conversation. So it's really cool to have, that there's a small world, and it sounds like Elaine is doing great things there.
Yeah, I had a Filipino American history class few quarters ago, and she was actually one of the guest speakers, and I knew of her because of this Filipino American Life, and obviously I listened to it, so I knew of her, and I see her on campus, and I'm kind of an awkward person, so I've always wanted to try to connect with her, but I've never had a good an easy time to. But I know of her generally, and I really respect her and what she does.
Yeah, no, shout out to Elaine. She seems so cool. And she's been the name that has been coming up lately, which I'm just going to jokingly say that we normally bring up Stacy from, she's our residential historian, our unofficial historian of our group. And we always bring her up because we love her so much. So I'm just going to throw her in here just because I like doing that to her. And
just because we haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, we got to bring up Stacy every now and then. Yeah. You haven't met Stacy, Ashley, but she's been on our show a couple of times. And like I said, she's kind of our residential historian here. Anyway, thank you for sharing that. And we're really happy to have you today. So this project is really dedicated to individuals who live or have lived in America that are of Filipino descent and identify as female. We also open up the narrative for people who identify as non-binary as well. So Ashley, can you share a little bit about your family background and why you identify as a Filipino American woman?
Yeah, so I was born here in Los Angeles, California, to my parents that migrated when they were teenagers. But my family is from the Philippines. And so, I eat the food, and I know my family's from the Philippines. So I was I guess I'm Filipino. No, but
that passes.
that works, right? That's how it works for sure. Like, yeah, it's just family, and I knew that I was Filipino and I was American because I was born here. So, like, in a technical sense, that's what made sense. But as a Filipino American woman now, with everything I've learned and still have yet to learn, I really identify with the culture because it has become a place of home, not because of my family, but because of the people I've met through organizations and community events. And the sense of like activism and resilience that I found in this community, I think is very touching and very empowering. And I identify with how strong a lot of people I've met are, but also how critical and how aware I've met individuals who are in the Filipino American community. And as a woman, obviously that intersectionality is so important because our struggles and our challenges are very specific to both our culture and our gender. So I identify with both. I've experienced both. I've seen both in both my family and in the people around me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I always love asking that question because I feel like people give so many different answers. And I mean, sometimes it's similar, but for the most part, it's like, it's just vastly different. And it's just another example of how diverse our community really is. So thank you for sharing that.
I like that you've kind of pointed out that you found strength in the resilience in Filipino organizations outside of your own family, because that's also been my personal experience. Not that I don't find strength and resilience in my own family, but it's a different kind of validation, I guess, when you find it with people that you can relate to who you're not related to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. And that's what we do at the show, is for people that are looking for that sister, that ate, or that outing they never had, like this is a show to provide that for people that maybe don't have that in their immediate circle, or they're trying to add upon what they already have. Well, with that said, for people that are getting to know you for the first time, and I know part of the reason why you're on the show is because you have a book. Why don't you share, what does life look like for you nowadays? And especially what keeps you busy and excited about life, given current times? I mean, I think there's a silver lining in everything. So what does life look like for you today, Ashley?
Today, it's mostly waking up late and sleeping late and being on TikTok for 3 hours. I mean, I just graduated college, still trying to navigate exactly where my interests are going to go. I have a great idea of like generally what I want to do. The only problem is there's a lot I want to do. So I don't know which one goes first. So I'm just trying to like reflect and navigate on that currently, especially giving into context this pandemic and how it's affected the industries I want to work into and where my life in writing fits into all of that, because it is the strongest passion of mine, but it's not something I want to do 24 hours a day, but it's something I love to do 12 hours of the day.
There you go.
So I'm trying to like incorporate that still into whatever path I choose. And it's just trying to figure it out, I guess. And also catching up with people. I've been really connecting with like my networks, with my friends, and getting updates on how everybody's doing. And it's just really, it's kind of tough, because of the pandemic, and hopefully things will simmer back to normal upsides, but who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like if things go back to normal, like what kind of normal is that going to look like, and what career options will be available? And are there career options right now in the meantime?
Yeah. It's like, what do you do in the meantime too? Like, should I just,
So this is like nothing related to do with school and your career, but like, what is the deal with TikTok? Because I don't use it.
I can't get into it.
Like, I am definitely an older millennial now, because like, there's just like, I couldn't get into Snapchat. Like my sister, one time I only had Snapchat because like that was the only social media account my sister was on. So I was like, okay, fine, I will get on Snapchat. And then she eventually got
sweet.
she eventually got off. I was like, okay, I'm off of it too. I don't want to be on here. And I see people, obviously they'll have those short like audio clips or, video clips that you can end up downloading and like putting on Instagram or something. But like, at least for you, like if you're on TikTok for 3 hours a day, that must mean something. Like, what does TikTok mean to you? Just so I understand, quote unquote, younger generation.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's like, for me, it's just a visual Twitter, because I feel like Instagram is a very curated social media, and also a ton of my family's on it. No offense to my family. It's just, we don't, we
can't do everything you want to do. Yeah.
Exactly. But we all have like different interests, you know, like what they're going to post. I'm not really interested in like always seeing.
Right.
Well, like, you know, sometimes I do, but it really depends on like what my mood is. If I want to feel, do I want to read something that's more engaged, more political commentary, more social commentary, or do I want a watch a cooking video or something just the existential humor of my generation? So I see TikTok as just a visual version of Twitter because the people I do follow and the things that I do watch are rather informative, especially like with the BLM movement going on. There's been a lot of really informative things to view and like looking through the comments, looking at the discussions. But I also just like watching cooking videos because they do it really cute and like and like really fast to watch rather than like a 10-minute YouTube video on like cooking, which I still watch. But like TikTok is just like, okay, boom, boom, boom. I want to try that one day. I'll save it. But there's just such a variety of things, like people who are like preparing you for like job stuff and like what to ask at interviews and like people telling you about like things, how to wake up in the morning to have a better like, you know, start to your day. And history, people talk about history, and then sometimes they're just funny. And so I feel like Twitter does that, but sometimes I don't feel like reading. So I just go through TikTok. Yeah.
You know, I appreciate you describing it that way. Like you are
me too.
You're the first person who's ever said that it's like a visual Twitter. Like, because I couldn't even fathom. I was like, if I'm going to do short stories like on TikTok, why don't I just do that with my Insta stories, you know? But that makes a lot of sense because that just does. Like, I don't have anything else to add to that. I don't know, Nadi, if you had any thoughts.
I mean, that's definitely the first time I've heard of someone who uses TikTok like intentionally like that and to like actually go and find things that are informative and not just like random dance challenges and whatever. Because that's what I thought it was. It's just like,
me too.
You know, my like our younger sister kind of generation of kids like on there dancing with their friends and stuff or doing makeup challenges or whatever, which is cool to watch and stuff. But I never felt the need to like download and join a new platform for that. Because again, I just assumed that if I wanted to do those things, I would post them on Instagram. But
and I agree,
that
like
actually makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. And I agree. Like it's definitely, I was listening to another podcast and it was talking about TikTok and how like, it's funny because it's not about being unique. It's about following the trend in TikTok. Like you do the same dance and like you try to put your spin on it, but it's pretty much the same thing. Like if you click on a music track that's on a video, it's like a dozen of the same dance of different people, which I like to watch too because the songs are super catchy. Like the radio now is just filled with TikTok songs. I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. But I think it's really cool because it gives like, there's no pressure to be that one person to like do this, you know what I mean? It's like, it's cool to actually kind of follow the trend and like
it's like more of a collective
collective.
I really like your take on that because I just think one time one of my friends like just showed me a series of like all these TikTok videos where everyone was doing like the Savage song and I was just so captivated. I was just like, oh, that's how they do it. That's how they do it. Well, that person was really like a lot sharper when they were doing
Jen's like
no, I will. The only time I ever dance is when I'm really drunk, and that has not happened in a while. Just so you know.
Same.
Like,
I'm glad I'm not alone in that.
Yeah,
Me neither.
I don't.
Yeah.
Oh man. I mean, the first time I ever really danced was in college, and my friends like invited me to like, just for the record, I actually didn't drink till I was 21. So I don't know if that like proves anything, but anyway. Not really. I still drink. I mean, I drink a lot. No, but
you've made up for it.
I made up for it. I did. Oh my God. I drank hard for 2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
21 to 23.
You just switched it. Your last 2 years were your first
21 to 23. She was just drunk.
That was her freshman year.
Yeah. And then I took like 2 years off. Like I was like, okay, I'm done. So from 23 to 25, I was like, that's too much. And then now I'd like to say I'm a fairly casual, like, I'll drink every now and then. But I remember like the first time I ever danced, it was like at a club. Like it was like my first club ever in downtown San Diego. And I was so like self-conscious because at the time I was convinced that you have to wear heels, you have to wear a dress, you have to wear like makeup. And I was just like really drunk and I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. And anyway, that's a conversation for another time because other weird stuff happened there as well. I'll just mention it since I'm talking about it. So like one of my first experiences in the club, my ex boyfriend happened to be at the same club I was at, and he actually waited to drink till he finished college.
Oh.
So he finished college and he was drunk at the club for the first time. And he was basically like stalking me. Like,
no.
every night. Yeah, he was like following me around. And I remember, like, I don't know, I think he like, obviously he broke up with me. So, you know, that's his fault. But yeah, at the end of the night, it was like 2 a.m. It was like the last round for drinks or whatever. He bought me like, at this time, I thought it was really, I mean, this is still really expensive. He bought me like a $20 shot of Patron, like, because that's how much it cost at the time. It was $20 for one shot, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I took that shot and then I ran away and then I never saw him again. So that's part of my first time dancing.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are so pricey.
Yeah. It was ridiculous. Because by then I think he already like landed his like job, like his stable job as an engineer. Anyway, good for him. So he will never listen to this show, by the way. I always joke to like Nani is like, just until they reach out and say, I heard you talk about me on your show, I'm just going to like, just talk trash about people in my past.
Just, you know, doesn't, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. Well, thank you for indulging us in that conversation and hearing a little bit about my college life a decade ago. So we talked a little bit about your life today and how you're figuring some things out. And I'm curious, I know that you're still trying to figure out like your career, obviously, but are there any like career options that you currently see like right now that you feel like you might consider looking into? I'm just curious because I think when I graduated college, like I literally didn't know either, like what I was going to do with my life. So I'm just curious where you're at with that.
Yeah, I know that there's like 3 main avenues that I'm super interested in. It's all just a matter of like, how will this be planned out in the next, I don't know, 5 years or whatever. But I'm really into film production in the entertainment industry. It's just really difficult because I'm a film minor. So I was able to connect with a lot of my professors and TAs and stuff, and I've done internships. But it's just a matter of like the industry is so on pause right now with the pandemic. So no one's really hiring or looking for assistants or anything. So I'm kind of just like floating. And then psychology major, I do really like counseling and therapy. And I want to pursue a marriage and family therapy master's eventually, or a PhD. Now I'm like, I'm not even sure which one I want to do. And then writing is like the love of my life. But yeah, I don't know where that's fitting in. I'm actually, thinking about other projects to do in terms of writing. But right now it's kind of on hold as I try to figure out a stable like job option.
Yeah. You know, I feel like mental health professions are like all the rage right now. Like everyone I know has a therapist. It's like such a in thing. I mean, I have a couples.
I have a therapist
actually, like my husband and I have couples counseling right now. You know, it's like, it's funny because he's all like, we don't have any problems. Why are we doing this? I was like, that's exactly why we're doing it. Because we don't have problems. Like, it's good. It's like preventative. But yeah, anyway, I'm just airing out my dirty laundry. But no, I mean, I feel like that's kind of like all the rage right now. And I know that a lot of people, not that you should pursue a career because it's trendy, but I know that a lot of therapists have transitioned to like telehealth type services, like, you know, doing like video counseling or just doing a phone call. And so I've always been fascinated by like therapists and the mental health industry. I never pursued it. I initially got my major in psychology until my freshman year. I got my first F in my life in Psychology 101. And I was like, that's probably not going to work for me. So I think it's really cool that you're considering that as an option and you do not fail your psychology class like me. So
yeah. I think the problem though with psychology at universities is just like it's so broad. And especially like research university like UCLA, it is very like statistics based, and I hate math, and it's just like a lot of classes were like a pain in the ass to like get through, because I was like, I do not want to do conditioning and I don't want to do like statistics, but I have to. It's part of the requirement. And I got lucky that I was able to like get through one of the hardest psych classes out there that was based on like research and methodologies, but it was just like, this is not of any interest. And it wasn't until like a few quarters I was able to do like classes that I was like, that was more concept based and super interested in, but they were just so broad. So I think psychology is a really great major. And I was actually reading a statistic that only 25% of psychology undergrads actually use a psychology degree for further education. Otherwise, people just get into other things because it is so broad, right? Like you can apply it as a therapist or counselor, but you can also apply it into marketing. You can also be like an advisor for like organizations to do team building, or you can apply it to like artwork and things and like the psychology of that, or just not use it at all. And I just like, it's just like, I have a bachelor's, that's it. That's all I can talk about, you know?
Right,
I think we're coming into, I don't know if we're just coming into it or we're like in the middle of it, but definitely for people that are graduating and my generation and stuff, it's like your bachelor's is very not really always attached to what you're going to be doing. And I think that's really hard to like translate to like family and like people who are a lot older, just because I know in the Philippines, like it's a bit more of a direct push into whatever you're studying goes into what your career. But unless you're like in the medical profession or like the engineering profession, it's like pretty kind of willy-nilly. Like
it's true.
It's not always going to be
not a linear path.
Exactly. And it's not always going to translate. And I know like I talked to a lot of like grad students and some of them just go to grad school because they're switching from industries. So I know I have like one of my TAs, he's a part of the film program, but he was like in financial writing or something, or financial literacy of some sorts beforehand. And that was like kind of a huge switch. And he joined the program because he didn't know anything about the film industry and that's what he wanted to do. So, you know, it's not linear and it's not translating equally. And also the fact that like a lot of the bachelor degrees these days are not like the positions for bachelor degrees are just not enough for a lot of positions anymore. It has to be like, you gotta get your master's now. So yeah, it's just kind of changing the entire narrative.
Yeah, for sure. You know, Ashley, you're very wise for a college graduate. And you know, what you mentioned is so true. Like a lot of us don't use our degree after college. And, you know, I got a degree in journalism, media studies with an emphasis in public relations. And it was like one of the harder, like more impacted, like degrees to get into or whatever. But I didn't use it after college. I mean, I ended up like having a social media agency like for myself for like 6 years. But in terms of like the traditional sense, like I didn't do the typical career path. And I think that with psychology, it's like if you really want to make something out of that degree, you typically have to go to school like that much longer from what I have noticed if people ended up pursuing it. But just like what you said, I noticed that with my friends that had psychology degrees or bachelor's degrees, that was kind of it. Like they didn't really like use it for anything else. You know, it was kind of like one of those majors, like, yeah, I graduated college. Yay me, you know, not to downgrade the degree in any way, because I mean, the reason why I fell in love with it initially is because I just wanted to better understand myself and better understand people. But yeah, you know, I think it's really, and you know, one thing that I like to say, and I feel like no one's going to like it when I say this, but like colleges are also a form of businesses and they're trying to sell you something. They're trying to sell you to get into crazy debt to get this degree that, you know, may not necessarily equate to anything in the real world. You know, I think about my friends who didn't go to college, and I remember I had this friend that was like crazy ambitious. And I remember asking, I was like, how did you do it? How did you accomplish so much? And he was all like, I didn't go to college. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. And, you know, you think about at least my parents, my immigrant parents, that's their biggest dream was for us to get bachelor's degrees. And so luckily we all did that. Now, did we actually apply it? That's like another story. So I think my brother is the only one who actually applied his degree like after college and everything, but he just recently got let go. I think unfortunately marketing is usually like the first thing that gets cut, like in most companies, you know? But yeah, you're very self-aware in knowing that, like, to me, I think that you go to school to better yourself, not to necessarily expect that that's going to translate into a job that you deserve, because, you know, no one deserves anything, unfortunately.
You got to work for it.
Yeah, you got to work for it or have like the right connections and stuff. So I think it sounds like you have a good head on your shoulders and you're looking at all of this with optimism and also being very realistic about it. And it sounds like you're taking your time figuring out what you want to do now that you've graduated.
Yeah, I definitely think that the narrative, I mean, I understand the narrative of like, you know, you got to go to college because it does work, like in a sense when you're looking for like careers and stuff that do require bachelor degrees. But it is just very terrifying for those who have to go through it, especially if it's like, you know, you're kind of the only one in your family to go through it. For my immediate family, like my stepmom was able to go to college, but it wasn't like the traditional sense of like the whole, you know, right after high school kind of 4 years. And she did it while she was working, which is like super, like I totally respect that. But it's a different experience when you're like 18 and you're like, oh, I'm going to go independent now for 4 years and I don't know what's going on. And like for me, like I was always excelling academically and stuff like that. So when I got to UCLA, it was like, it became no longer studies. It became like, who am I as a person and trying to figure that out and that, that still goes on. I know that's going to go on for the rest of my life. And I totally accept that. It's very scary to have to take those first few steps on what it feels like on your own until you find like that community and stuff and try to start honing in on what that voice is. But it does take a while, and it's still taking a time. And then it's like the next year college is over.
Yeah. So, it just goes in a blink of an eye.
Also want to commend you on how wise and self-aware it sounds like you are, especially in such a weird time. I think it's the more common story you hear, at least with our generation, that, 10 years or 5 years down the line, it's like, oh, what did I get my degree in again? I also don't use my degree for anything really remotely related. So I know that is probably a tough thing to hear for someone who's currently, just graduated and just got done doing 4 years of extremely hard work and putting so much of yourself into it. But I love that you consider yourself, like you said, a lifelong learner, and you really, enjoy learning about these things, and you have a clear idea of what your interests are, even if there are several of them and they may seem unrelated. But when considering the new normal after this pandemic and how the world is going to kind of reshape itself, I feel like there is going to be a lot of opportunity if you just keep collecting all of those lessons and wisdom that you're getting from school or whatever other spaces that you're learning from. I think that in the future, there's going to be, great opportunity for you to maybe combine all three into a project of some sort, that you can dive into later on in life. And so I guess my only advice to you at this point would just to be patient with yourself and with the world, and, let it all kind of come together. Because I know you probably feel a lot of pressure right now, just having graduated and not sure what opportunities are even available right now for you to start working or continue school. So yeah, just give yourself grace and be patient, and you are a smart cookie. So I know it will all work out for you.
Thanks, Annie. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't really need advice from us, but in case,
not at all.
So just in case, here it is.
Thank you. I know, I totally appreciate it. Yeah, it's always good to hear as much advice as possible, because, I could be aware of everything that's happening, but what are the steps are going to look like? So I just love absorbing people's experiences and advice to kind of navigate that.
I just feel like college was so much harder than life for me. If I were to look back, I was it was so hard.
Yes, the worst of it is over.
I was just thinking because you're so pressured to know who you are, and you're in your young 20s. You're so young. I don't know what I want. I'm 32. I still don't know what I want. It's hence why I do the show. I try to figure it out through you guys. Through everyone. Yeah. But it's interesting how just rigid it was. And then I remember when I graduated, I felt this sense of relief. I was like, oh yeah, and don't get me wrong, life hasn't been easier. College just kind of felt like a bubble. I think it really gave me this almost unrealistic idea of what the real world was going to be. And so when I got out,
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's
I agree.
And it's when I got out, I was and as the years went on and I look back at my degree, which I'm so happy to have gotten, by the way, I have no regrets for going through school. It's just interesting to think wow, that was a bubble that I lived in for 5 years. And it makes me wonder, if I could go back, would I have gone to college? Maybe I would have taken a different approach. I don't know. College was a job in itself. And then once I graduated, I was okay, I'm transitioning. I'm going to do another career. I'm going to do another job, So anyway, I just think reflecting out loud my experiences in college is because you just graduated. I was it makes me think about my college life. But let's go ahead and move on. We can talk about college forever. I have a lot of stories, but we won't get into those today. So Ashley, you have a book. And I think it's super awesome. Yeah, I think it's awesome because it's when I graduated college, I did not write a book. So tell us about this book.
I don't think many of us did.
Tell us about this book and what compelled you to write it.
So my book is called My Heart of Rice, A Poetic Filipino-American Experience. It is a series of poems in chronological order about my Filipino-American identity, starting with the food that my Lolo cooked when I was younger, and how that was my connection to being Filipino. Again, like I said, I grew up in Los Angeles, in Eagle Rock specifically, which is really Filipino, but my family wasn't super connected with the community there. It was more just food. It was like there's a Jollibee and a Chowking at that mall, and that's, that's what it is. I haven't been to the Philippines since I was like 8 or 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But food was like the main cultural aspect. And then I would also watch teleseries or soap operas, Filipino soap operas, but we stopped that at some point. I don't know. But that was also how I learned the language, but I'm not very fluent and I don't want to speak Tagalog because I've been told it doesn't sound very authentic, so I'm not going to try. But yeah,
I know what you mean. One time I was like trying to, like, this is like back in college too. Like, come on, college just like messed me up. But I remember my first college boyfriend, the one that tried to hit on me in the club. Like, I pretended to have this Filipino accent around him, and he's like, "Don't ever do that again." It was, like that was bad. And I was like, and I just have not really tried ever since. So thank you, ex-boyfriend, for traumatizing me.
For shaming me.
I was in high school. I went to a Catholic school and we were doing like those prayers at Mass, and it was supposed to be like international or something. So I did mine in Tagalog. And then the only other Filipino girl was just like, "Dude, you sound so whitewashed." And I was like, okay, I'm never going to do this again.
That's so sad. That's so sad because it's like,
rude.
Yeah, because it's like you're making an effort, and it's like it's hard enough to claim that you're Filipino, as we all know, and then to have to prove yourself, especially to other Filipinos, or to be shamed for not being Filipino enough. It's like, like this is not helpful, guys. It's not helpful.
Yeah. And language is like the biggest indicator for so many people. It's like if you don't know how to speak any of the Filipino languages, you're not Filipino. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And I tried. I enrolled in a Filipino class in college my first week, but it was just too much in terms of like transitioning to college. I went to a small Catholic all-girls school. So going at UCLA, which is like 400 people per lecture, when like my school was only like 250 girls in one, like all 4 years, it was like the biggest culture shock. And there were like people that were not just like girls. I was like, so it was just a lot. And like the class was really great. Like the teacher was super sweet. It was just a lot of work and I just wasn't used to it. And so like I had a mental breakdown and I was like, I can't do this. And I just never got back to it. So it was just also a lot. So I think that, that being the only indicator of being Filipino is like kind of just tough to go around, because there's also people with like certain experiences that have never allowed them to, or like I know people grew up in families where they're not even allowed to like learn Tagalog or other Filipino languages. So
yeah, for sure. So your book.
Yeah, sorry. My book. I've been writing poetry for years. I think since I was probably 10, 11 years old. I actually won like a citywide competition when I was 12, and that was when I knew poetry was like my jam.
Wow. Get it.
Yeah, thank you. I got pushed by the mayor on accident, so that's fun.
You got pushed by the mayor.
Yeah, so Mayor Villagrosa of Los Angeles, it was a ceremony of like the award ceremony for the competition, and we were taking a picture and he accidentally like nudged me and I kind of like doubled over. And
my gosh.
I was like, oh my God, the mayor pushed a little girl, and it was funny. I like to tell.
Did he help you up?
No, I didn't fall. I just kind of stumbled,
Oh, okay.
It was like, the mayor pushed me.
It looked really bad.
Yeah,
on his part.
Yeah, it was definitely
like, how dare you?
You're like, my neck.
But yeah, I won that, and I knew poetry was just like the thing that I like. It was my jam, and I also wrote a lot of other things in between. And then I was just writing a few poems on, my family was going through something at the time. My mom's side of the family was going through something at the time. And so I was just trying to process that. And all these emotions were just like really overwhelming, and all the events were just really overwhelming. So I was like, I'm just going to write about it because that's how it feels real, but also not as scary as it is in my head. And so I started writing, and then New Degree Press, which is my publishing company, they were doing a program for like students and things, for like students, and then
and rocks and leaves
and rocks and lizards and all that stuff, And then they approached me with the opportunity, and I was like, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
And so I took it, and I kept pushing it back because college again is some busy stuff, and writing a book at the same time is not the easiest feat, but I eventually got to it. I think it was like really good timing on my part. I started abroad my last fall quarter of my senior year, and that coincided with the writing process. So being abroad, away from home, away from like the busyness and chaos of the community, I was able to just like take my time, writing on trains in between like Amsterdam and Paris, which is really cool, and going and like on planes and things, and being able to like manage that time zone difference to like make it work for me. Then it came out, and here we are.
Wow.
What a cool experience.
I know, especially because you had the opportunity to publish a book like while you're in college.
Yeah.
That is pretty awesome. I'm curious, what do you hope to, or like, who do you hope to help with that book? I know it's one thing to like publish a book, to like, I published a book, but I would imagine that with the publishing company, they probably talk to you about having some kind of objective with the book. And so what is like the primary objective or the thing that you want to accomplish now that you have this book in your hands?
Yeah, definitely the target audience is for people who don't feel like they're part of their identity, their culture, or their heritage, who feel either disconnected from that or never really thought about it. Kind of like the book is chronological because it's how I figured it out, besides like moving away from the food into the community, into the history, into the traditional aspects of it in the context of this very diverse country of America, right? Rather than just like a monolith of another country. And so it's really just, I want it to be a guide in a way for people to kind of start their own journey, especially for Filipino Americans. I know that there's there's so many different experiences, and how connected someone is varied throughout. Like I've met people who have cousins who are like generations of like college activists in the Filipino community. So they knew all this stuff coming in. And there was me who was like, I had no idea that this even existed. And so being involved in the Filipino org at UCLA, Samhang Filipino, was like the central point of my college career. And it inspired so much of like why I wrote the book, because I met so many other Filipinos who just weren't interested in joining the org, or like had some kind of personal thing going on, like to not really connect with the org. And I always wondered like, why? Because this makes sense to me. And, I want to take account that people have those diverse experiences, and there's reasons why, like individually. So I just wrote this book because I'm like, if you're interested in having any connection or having any desire to want to understand or connect in some way, this is a great starting point. It's like a first-hand book because it talks about history, it talks about community conditions, it talks about general experiences, and just for anyone who feels disconnected from that part of their identity and want to seek that out.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
I love that you say that. Yeah, no, I just wanted to add upon that. And I'm also a part of like community organizing spaces up here in the Bay. And I kind of feel like guilty sometimes when I unplug and I don't check the messages for like weeks or something. But I'm always so blown away by every time I do want to plug back in. It's like nobody's judging me for that. Everyone understands. Nobody, is probing into my personal life. They just understand, your attention can get spread thin sometimes. And sometimes you just need to find other ways to connect with your roots. And that's why I love, people like you who put out books, or people who put out podcasts, like things that you can engage in your own time in those moments when life is kind of getting to you.
Yeah,
I just wanted to add upon that. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, this is actually, I think, a good opportunity to transition to one of my most favorite questions of our, of our conversation, so that we don't go over 2 hours or something. So Ashley, the life lesson that you want to share with us today is that art is healing. And you did kind of allude a little bit about like you and your family having gone through something, and you don't have to get into the detail of that, but writing has been a really good outlet for you. And so I imagine that the art you're probably describing is writing, but if not, I'd love for you to share, what does this life lesson mean for you, and what inspired you to share this life lesson with us?
All right. So just to give like context of my experience with that kind of lesson, I think I've been doing it through writing for a while. I just didn't know how to articulate that. And it wasn't until I had my first ever breakup.
And it's always a breakup. It's always a breakup.
It's always a breakup. I wrote a poem and then I made it into a short film with my friends. And we recorded, or we shot like in court, like one of my favorite places in downtown Los Angeles that were kind of related-ish to that relationship. And I think that it was the process of getting my friends together and the process of being in those places, not in the context of that relationship, but in the context of my friendships and making memories over there to kind of replace it. And, you know, making that entire experience into something objective really helped my healing process. I think it just sped it up by like tenfold, being able to kind of just think about it like, this is a project. This is no longer like my pain. This is like something that I'm doing and that I need to get done. And by the end of it, I was like, whoa, I'm like pretty good now. I'm healed, not completely, but like definitely a lot closer than I was at the beginning of it. And that's when I realized like all this time that I've written poetry about what I was going through, or just writing in my journal about what I'm going through, has just been really healing in that way. And I didn't realize it until that moment. So when I wrote the book, that was a similar experience, because I was feeling at the beginning of my college career, when I first learned about and tried to enter the Filipino org space, I felt that kind of disconnect, because I didn't grow up with a lot of Filipino people my age. I don't have like a cousins like my age, like big cousins or anything like that. My boyfriend does. And so his experience is different. And I grew up mainly around Hispanic communities. And again, like my family wasn't really involved in the community in cultural way. So when I was able to finally get exposure to that, I felt weird, and I felt like, oh, maybe this isn't maybe this isn't my vibe. Maybe this isn't my people. Like I hoped it would be. Eventually it did. It was just really making those connections, but it started off that weird feeling of imposter syndrome and whatnot. And that feeling was hard to kind of come by, because this is what I look like and they look like me, but then we're not really clicking here. And I feel like it's, my fault because I don't engage in this culture as much as they did. And so those feelings I had to process, along with the feelings that were going with my family. So they all just kind of came together, fortunately, in a way, in these different themes. And when I wrote this book, when I finally finished it, and again, it became like a project, it was like I am closer to accepting and understanding what my Filipino American identity is than I was before. And so honestly, it's just a personal therapy project for me.
Yeah. They say that research is really me search. It's like what you're creating is really just you kind of outwardly exploring like this inner world that you didn't realize you had. And it's like the more that you create something physically, the more your inner world makes a lot of sense.
And I think like also finding like the academia behind it. Again, like I've always been like an academic person. I love history and I love reading things and research. And so being able to see like these histories or these community conditions into like actual published articles was very validating for me. I know that's not for everyone, but for me, it was like super validating, super like, wow, this is something that I'm not the only one going through, and it's a study in it. And I think that process, which I did do some research on for this book, was very, very healing. And like going back to a point earlier about, how Jen, you wanted to do psychology to learn more about yourself. Same for me. My parents are divorced. And I was like, I'm going to immediately do adolescent development. And I remember sitting in lecture, and then they were like, okay, so what are, high risk things percentage wise? Because that's what basically psychology is based on, statistics of like children who go through like divorce experiences, and like people were like shooting ideas up in the air. And I was like, whoa, that's me. LOL.
You're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah. Relatable. And so it was just so... It put everything into so much perspective, rather than like this internal battle of like, gosh, like, is it something with me? Is it something with this? It's like, okay, I can connect it to these bigger ideas and these bigger studies that other people have experienced.
Powerful.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great way to wrap up our conversation, Ashley. Yeah. You just have so much knowledge and you're so articulate and you're so full of wisdom. And I feel very excited for you and this new stage of your life, given current times. It's really interesting. Really interesting to be a college graduate right now. I can only imagine. But, for people that want to connect with you, and learn more about you and learn more about your book, how can they do that? How can they find you online?
So you can find me on Instagram at @ashleylanuza_ or Facebook at facebook.com/AshleyLanuza. And just message me from there. I'm pretty open to anything, to more if people want to just hit me up for questions or want to discuss the book. And I'm always open to comments and critiques. I think it's really important for growth. And I think it's important to accept these diverse thoughts from other people because especially art is so subjective. I don't believe that even if I have the intentions I have with this book, it's not always going to translate. And I think that's okay because that's always based on the person's experience. So I'm always open to hearing how people feel about it. And especially for those who relate to it, that always makes me cry. I always send screenshots to my boyfriend like, oh my God, look, someone messaged me and they like this part of my book and they related to it. And I just makes me so happy. So if anyone feels that way, awesome. That's super dope. If you just send me a screenshot on Instagram, I would love that.
Yeah. That's what I love about...
I definitely want to read your book.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I just wanted to throw that in there. It has been in my Amazon cart for a long time. I have a bad habit of buying a bunch of books and then never reading them. Yeah. And so I try to do one at a time now, but I have them in my save for later. And that has definitely been sitting there. So that will be my next purchase.
Let me know when you do.
Yeah. So I either love listening to books on Audible or I like to have things on Kindle because I used to be a big annotator, in my books. I used to obsess. If you see my old books, it's highlighted, noted, everything.
That's how I am too. Yeah.
Yeah. But nowadays, maybe it's just because I do a lot of podcasting. I like things being read to me.
Yeah.
And so if your book is on Kindle, that is something I will definitely read because I can use Siri to just
it's on Kindle.
It's on Kindle. Okay. Noted.
It's on Kindle. It's on Kindle. It's on Kindle, Kobo, and Nook as ebooks.
I love it.
So Walmart and Barnes & Noble and Amazon all have my book in ebook form, and then Amazon has the physical. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
How cool.
I just love that you have a book to show.
I know. That's so cool.
And I just say that because, Nani and I want to get a book done for this project. And I've been saying that for 4 years now. So I have not started that process.
But
we can definitely appreciate all your hard work there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Ashley, it's been an absolute pleasure having you today. We really enjoyed your time and we wish you the best in this new stage of your life. Thank you for teaching us a little bit about TikTok. I feel like I can better appreciate it, for more than just an entertainment platform. So thank you for that. I had no one ever describe it to me in that way. And and for anyone that wants to get a hold of you, to our listeners, we appreciate you listening in. If you want to get a hold of Ashley, we'll have her contact information in the show notes on our website, TFAWproject.com. That's TFAW project.com. And with that said, we look forward to speaking with you all in the next episode. Tune in next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.